Hello everyone, I'm the Saxy Gamer. Today we're here for yet another episode of Civilization VI Tips, where today we'll be talking about your starting build order. And what I mean by starting build order is just the first 2 or 3 things that you're going to be building whenever you're playing a game of Civ. I do think that this is one of the more important things to get your games going, to kind of choose how you start the game, so it is quite important, so I think we'll talk about it. So right here, we've just kind of settled our capital here. We're just kind of playing Wilhelmina. It doesn't really matter what the Civ is or anything like that. But now we have to choose what we're going to make first in our capital. And I used to always build monuments first, but that is just a terrible idea. What I would recommend doing is either building a scout or a slinger first, and there are multiple reasons for this. So especially if you're playing with Rise and Fall, that era score is now a thing, so you want to make sure that you're exploring to get goodie huts, to maybe discover new continents, to meet new people. It is really important that you get a scout to walk around and do all of that stuff, and the next episode will probably be on how to properly do early scouting. But I would highly recommend building a scout as your very first thing. If you are just feeling a little bit, worried, maybe it's your first time on a higher difficulty or something of the sort, you could go for a slinger, because that gives you a lot of early defense to have a slinger in the cap. It makes it a lot easier to defend against barbarians as well. So if you would like to do that, the slinger is always a good option just for defense. I wouldn't recommend the monument just because getting +1 culture this early on isn't going to matter too much, and it's you can get that in any other city at any time pretty much, so getting it right now, it's not worth the 12 turns to do it now. The scout is just a lot more valuable. The builder will eventually come a little bit later. You might have that as maybe your third option or something like that, but I wouldn't make it now. You could possibly build a warrior, especially if you're going to be rushing city-states like that. So maybe you're playing Germany or you're playing Gilgamesh, you could build either warriors or war carts or something of the sort and just rush a city-state. That is a viable option, but for the most part, I would recommend the scout. So that's what we're going to go with right now. And then whenever you're waiting for your scout to come up, you can make sure that you have your warrior go out and just kind of see what kind of terrain you have around. As far as your first techs go, I would normally either recommend animal husbandry or mining. It all depends on just what you have around. Unfortunately, right here, we don't have really either. We don't have anything to make improvements with animal husbandry, nor do we have anything to improve with mining. But I'm going to go for mining just because it allows us to chop woods. So I think that's a fairly decent idea. If you are rushing a religion, you could go for astrology and just rush that straight up. But otherwise, I would definitely not recommend doing that because it is one of the more expensive techs. And then while we wait for our scout to finish, what we'll do is we'll just have our warrior kind of go around, in the general vicinity of our capital and just kind of see if there's anything interesting there. Maybe he can find a goodie hut or something of the sort. Alright, so now we've finished our scout, and we're gonna send him to go explore somewhere. And once again, I said I'll make a video on how to do early scouting, but we'll just kind of arbitrarily send him off now. And now we want to do our second build. And whenever it comes to the second build, if you ask me, there are 2 big options here. Normally, I would either go with a settler or a slinger. You definitely want to get an early slinger whenever you're playing on higher difficulties, just because the AI, if you meet the AI is probably going to attack you, unless it's someone like Gilgamesh that you can befriend really easily. The AI is probably going to attack you, so that's why I would recommend the slinger. So I would most of the time just immediately get a second slinger. If I've somehow managed to scout enough that I know that there's nobody directly near me, I would go ahead and get a settler, just because the earlier you get out your cities, generally the better it is, because that gives you just more time to build them up. So we don't know if anybody's around us yet. We haven't explored that much, so we're going to go for a slinger here. Alright, so we've just finished mining as well, which is our first tech. So we are going to go ahead, and now I'll normally get animal husbandry. Pottery is another one to consider if you want to go for an early campus, so check out the Great People thing and just see who the first great scientist is. If it's Hypatia, I would probably recommend going for a campus if you're going for a science victory, because Hypatia is a very good great scientist and someone that maintains quite a good effect throughout the entire game. But aside from that, I think we're just going to go for animal husbandry, because animal husbandry is pretty good. It unlocks a bunch more possible tile improvements, and it also leads to archery, so that is a very good thing. And we finished our slinger, so that's been our second build. And for the most part, what I'll normally do is just keep the slinger in the capital and just have him rest up here. If I do have a barbarian encampment that I know is pretty close, and if I know I can comfortably let the slinger leave, I'll send the slinger out to go kill the barb encampment to boost archery. Because the boost to archery is fairly easy to get. All you have to do is kill a unit with a slinger. So if I'm feeling comfortable enough to do that, then I'll send the slinger out. But otherwise, I'll normally just have him sit here and be defensive. And now for our third build, I would pretty much always recommend, if you haven't gotten a settler yet, go for a settler for your third build, just because you don't want to wait too long to get your cities out. Once again, the only like alternative to this would be if you're playing someone that really goes like early aggression against like city-states or other civs, so like Germany or Gilgamesh, where you're pretty much going to be getting indirectly a free city from just taking one. Then I would say you can keep producing units, but if you're not going to do that, I would definitely recommend getting a settler as your third build if you haven't done it already. So we will go ahead and select that. But that's pretty much it for this episode. I just wanted to talk about, you know, what you do in the early game for your first few builds. So just to recap things, for your very first build, I would recommend either a slinger or a scout. You can go for the scout to get some arrow score. You can get some goody huts, find out what's around you, find some other find some possible settling locations for your second city. You can get the slinger if you want to have a little bit of extra defense early on. Maybe if you've met someone already that's really close to you, definitely go for the early slinger. That'll just help keep you safe. It'll help you deal with barbs a little bit easier as well. For your second build, I would recommend either a slinger or a settler. The slinger would be if you haven't already built one, so as your first build, I would definitely recommend getting the slinger second, just because slingers normally don't take that many turns to produce, so having one early is just, it's not going to set you back too far, and it is just generally a very safe idea, so I highly recommend it. And then for your third build, if you haven't already built a settler, I would definitely recommend getting a settler, and then from there on, I would just produce a bunch of settlers to go and settle all of your cities. So thank you everyone for watching. I've been the Saxy Gamer. If you enjoyed the video, feel free to like. If not, feel free to dislike. If you're looking for more Civilization 6 content, feel free to subscribe. Thank you for watching, and goodbye.